Welcome to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, your guide to good food, good health, and a good life. And now, here's your host, Nutrition Network advisor and author of the Nourishment Mindset, Dixie Huey.
Happy Transformation Tuesday, y'all. Welcome to or back to the Nourishment Mindset Podcast, where we are on a metabolic mission to achieve vitality, reverse chronic lifestyle conditions with real whole foods, the pleasures of the table, straight talk, and sound healing practices. I have a very special guest today, and we are going to be talking about winning wise, willpower, and something a lot of people in the health and fitness world don't talk about that often. And that is what my guest calls emotional fitness. We also get into what motivates us. And as a student of psychology and human behavior, I really especially enjoyed that. So you will be introduced to him in a moment. But before I do that, there are some housekeeping things here at the Nourishment Mindset. First of all, I owe some of y'all, at least 4 more of you, a complimentary signed copy of my book. Why is this? Well, I am looking at 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, and I am aware of this thanks to Amy, who wrote, "Love this podcast. Dixie has an amazing way of presenting holistic health information. I love her approach and the lightness and humor added. It's a joy to listen to, and it's enhancing my knowledge on how I approach food and diet." Thank you, Amy, for that beautiful review. I'm so glad it's helpful. And also for finding me, because that's something that I must take the heat for. When I offered to send a complimentary signed copy to listeners who review the podcast on either Apple or Spotify to help us grow awareness of this metabolic mission, I failed to say, please get in touch with me. You can go to my favorfat.com website and you'll see all the different ways to connect with me, links to email, phone, however you want to, get in touch, Instagram. I need y'all's names and shipping information. So who are these other at least 4 people? There may be more of you. Sandy of CA, Bullwinkle 713, Abe Lever, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, Abe, and RMMLD03. I'll be sharing their reviews, one each in a subsequent podcast. But if you are one of these people, please, pretty please reach out to me so I can make good on my promise to you. I like keeping my promises, and I apologize for not stating that more clearly, that I need you to reach out to me. Apple doesn't tell me when I get a review. So on from that, as you know, because I've said it before, but maybe you're first listening. And if you're watching, you can see 2 things. One, I have my paperback. This is the author's copy, hence that mark in front of it, that watermark. The copy you get will not have a watermark. So if you go on Amazon, it is there. You can get the paperback. You can get the Kindle version, however you best like to read. And if you review the book on Amazon, I will enter you into a drawing, a monthly drawing that I'll do on the last day for a complimentary health coaching consult. The other thing you see if you are watching on YouTube at Nourishment Mindset is my crazy, huge, beautiful emerald colored earrings. Why do I bring this up? Well, they're huge, and I usually don't wear such huge accessories, but I was feeling fun today. Also, this always makes me happy because I bought these from an incredible woman. We were at Crazy Horse Monument in South Dakota a couple summers ago, and this Lakota dancer with hula hoops just had me literally in tears. And she's multi-talented. She not only can spin 20 plus hula hoops, she makes beautiful jewelry. So if you're in South Dakota or you're headed that way, please go to Crazy Horse and watch this woman twirl and support her little earring and jewelry business. So we're almost done with our housekeeping. If you would like a signed copy, just go to my website, Favor Fat, or if it's easier to remember, Nourishment Mindset, that'll take you to the same place. And you can order direct from me, same price as Amazon, includes shipping, and I will sign a copy and get that off to you. Finally, please connect with me on Instagram at Nourishment Mindset, on LinkedIn, if you're a LinkedIner, at Dixie Huey. And all of my stuff, if you haven't yet subscribed to the Substack and the book and everything, all of it's on Favor Fat. So I'm just going to keep it simple and go check out Favor Fat. So without further ado, in the words of my wonderful high school cross-country coach, Coach Bodine, R.I.P. Boater, let's go get him. Today on the Nourishment Mindset podcast, we have a very special guest. His name is David Greenwalt. He is a certified health coach, the founder of Leanness Lifestyle University, which he has been doing for, you're going on almost 25 years. And welcome to the podcast, David. Thanks for being here.
Dixie, thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you have an interesting backstory. Before, the last now almost 3 decades of being a health coach, a fitness pro, you were a police officer, right? So how did you go from being a keeper of the peace to a motivator for health, wellness, fitness, David?
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. Yes, I was a city police officer, and I was also an Illinois state trooper. And what happened was, when I was an Illinois state trooper, I graduated from the academy, and at that time I was a bodybuilder, power lifter, and I kind of go back and forth. I'd do a show, and then I'd bulk up for powerlifting because powerlifting was all about getting big and strong. And so in doing that, so I graduated from the academy, and about a year after that, I was using supplements, just basics, protein powder and whatnot. And I thought, I want to start an at-home supplement business, a mail order supplement business. Just if I could just make enough money to pay for my own supplements, I'll be happy. I mean, I'm a trooper. I'm making a living. It's a vocation that I'm going to do the rest of my life. It's all good. And I started in this little tiny room in my home, and there was no internet back then. And I placed these little classified ads in the back of the bodybuilding magazines, Flex Magazine, Iron Man. And I placed these little classified ads with a toll-free number. Call, if you want the best prices and on supplements. Well, that was in 1992. And by 1997, we were at about $5 million in revenue a year and 45 employees.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Yes. And so I took it out of the house, obviously. And we were in, 8,000 square foot warehouse. And it was, and I was still a trooper because I didn't grow up with a business background. And I'm like, well, I really like being a police officer, and this is a guaranteed gig. I mean, if you stick with the state police, you're going to have a retirement and a pension. And I'm like, I don't know. But at some point, people around me and friends and whatnot were like, David, this business is booming, and I was like, yes. And I was working 80-hour weeks. I was doing 40 hours as a trooper and 40 hours, for this company. Anyway, I say that because what happened was, you asked how I transitioned. Well, I cut the cord with the state police because that supplement business was doing so well. But when that business was at its peak, the internet was coming in, emails was starting, the web was just barely here, and people could email me. They knew my background, bodybuilding, powerlifting, and whatnot. They knew I had gone through my own journey where I finally finished powerlifting, and I lost 50 pounds of my own excess. And I decided I no longer wanted to go back to 235 pounds on a 5'10" frame. And so they knew my history, and I communicated a lot with my clients, my customers. And I don't hate to say it, I had tens of thousands of customers. And so emails would come in and say, Dave, can you tell me real quick, no big deal, just when you get a moment, how I can lose and keep off forever 30 pounds, and how I can lose and keep off forever 50 pounds. And I tried to answer in an email best I could, but it's bumper sticker, back of the napkin, fortune cookie answers where you just can't give the real complete And I just found I was so passionate about wanting to help these people get from where they were to the better place. And I found that I was much more passionate about doing that. And I had so much more in me to share that I wrote my book, The Leanness Lifestyle. It was almost 500 pages. And I created, when internet was still dialed in your home and be on the internet at the same time, I created Leanness Lifestyle University, where we could coach people and have amazing two-way communication. Wow.
Right.
Now we're like, yeah, whatever. You and I are Zooming right now. Like, well, what's the big deal? Well, back then it was a big deal. And the ability to author a book and then have people be able to give you feedback or to talk about the elements in the book was amazing. And so I created that in 1999, and we've been coaching people virtually, and with that program just expanding and growing and and getting better for 23 years online. So that's how I transitioned out. Oh, and I sold the supplement company. I don't sell any supplements at all. I sold that supplement company so that I could do Leanness Lifestyle University all the time.
I love that. And my prior background is 20 years in business, marketing, public relations, management consulting. So I love that your business that you had and the supplements, your customers helped you create your new business. And
that's so well said. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, it's great. You're responding to demand. I was speaking with my college roommate yesterday, Kirsten, who helped me very much, who happens to be a nutritionist. And she was talking about hanging out her shingle and going out and what she wants to do. And I said, you should think about your business plan. You should do all that. But at a certain point, just offer some services and the market will tell you what it wants, because the business I founded 20 some years ago looked completely different when I wound out of that business to become a health coach. So love the business end. So I would love to know, and I'm sure it's a 500-page book. Mine's too. Yeah. So that's a big book. That's a lot of information. And I've had the pleasure of being on your site and seeing how some things work. I mean, it's a robust site. If someone, said, tell me, what do I need to know? What are the key tenets of this idea of a leanness lifestyle, without going into the 500-page amazing tome of information? What is key about it?
Well, Dixie, you don't want me to just do the Audible version of my 500-page book right now?
You and me both. We can do that together for both of us.
Yeah. It'd be something to really lull people into a nice deep sleep. Exactly. Not kidding, but
sleep is needed these days.
Everyone's I know.
Crazy. So,
one of the things that I learned early on, and one of the reasons the book was 500 pages, is I spent a lot of time in that book on emotional fitness. So we've got multiple legs of I call it permanent weight management stool. Okay. And one of the legs is nutrition. Everybody goes, yep, got it. One of the legs is exercise or activity. One of the legs is emotional fitness. One of the legs relates to what drives willpower. One of the legs relates to things related to compulsive overeating or addiction. Mm-hmm. And so those are the legs that we have to address. Now, most people, so let me say them again: nutrition, exercise, activity, emotional fitness, the continued ability to have, conviction and willpower. That's kind of a separate thing, and we address that. And then, addiction and compulsive overeating. So all the elements that go into that are multifaceted, and there are many, many parts to that. We live in a very obesogenic, environment, and all the pieces and parts that create this. Obesogenic just means, anything that is external and internal that promotes behaviors that drive up obesity, right? And there's so many factors that go into that. So I knew, most people come in and they're like, all right, Dave, listen, I know what to do. I just need to do it. Now, they may not say that. This isn't across the board, but a lot of people we all eat, and so therefore we all know nutrition, at least to a degree. Some people are very well read on it, but what they've read could be sketchy, but they feel they're well read. So they'll come in a lot of times with, I know what to do. I just need to do it. When they say that, they're speaking of nutrition and exercise. They're speaking of they're speaking of the calories in, calories out, energy expenditure, energy intake, and just give me the 7-day meal plan and give me the exercise routine, and I'll be on my way. I just need a little bit of accountability, and I'll be good. And that's a mindset that's very, very common. And some people don't. Some people are very just open to saying, hey, I don't really know. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why. I don't know nutrition very well. But most times they're still focused on nutrition and exercise. So we're going to focus on those things. And I say this not to mean it literally, but I say I can teach you what you need to know about nutrition for health in about an hour. I can teach you what you need to know about exercise and activity for health in about an hour. But what keeps those things going in the right direction? What keeps those things consistent when the stress of the day is overwhelming? What keeps those things consistent when you just had the argument with a spouse or someone you love or whatever it is? What keeps those things consistent when you get the note from the boss? And on and on and on. When you get the bad news, when this is going on, when this feels stressful, when there's anxiety, how do we keep those two things going the right way? It's the other legs that I talked about. So that's the simplest way I can answer this very, kind of complex subject of how do we do this? We have to look at all of it, because if we just look at nutrition and exercise, we're not going to win. We have to bring in the other elements that are driving willpower, look at compulsive eating, and then all the factors that are huge related to emotional fitness. When we do that step by step, progressively, bit by bit, one little step forward at a time, we can start to appropriately, respectfully address these things and move past eat less, exercise more.
Yes.
That message.
I love the emotional fitness aspect. I mean, that's where almost every approach, every book, every program, that's not even considered. So you were so far ahead of your time doing that.
Yeah, at that time, and I want to, I'll welcome you or anyone. I have not found, and I mean this sincerely, that's why I welcome this quote unquote challenge. At the time in 1999, my book the 4th edition was published in 2002, and I haven't put out a new edition. What I've done is I've just continually updated via our virtual online campus. All the new, I just keep bringing it out there instead of writing another book. But in 2002, I was not aware, and I'm still not aware of a book that addressed, at that time at least, nutrition, exercise, and emotional fitness all in one. Like you said, back then, and most times it's nutrition, or it's exercise, or it's emotional fitness, personal growth oriented, that kind of way. But all three in one, I still don't know of one in 2002 that was around. So, but I just could see, very strongly that there's these other components I talked about, but emotional fitness is such a massively important, underappreciated, undertaught, whatever you want to say, that, just undervalues it, but is so critical to keeping that energy in, energy out, calories in, calories out, nutrition and exercise, keeping those things on the straight and narrow.
Right. The difference, it sounds like, between knowing and actually doing.
Yes.
All those, we all know, I think by now, I hope, please, that right. The drive-through is not a place to actually get food. And so we know we shouldn't drive through that drive-through, but the note from the boss, one of your examples, that could derail someone. So yeah, good for you. So I heard you say in another podcast, and you just mentioned your book, and it's, now hasn't been re-edited, if you will, in right. 20 years. So you said that there really wasn't much that you would change about the book. So tell me, is there anything that that you went, oh, well, I've changed my thinking on that?
I looked at it recently and didn't read the whole book again, but I looked at it. I looked at the index and so forth, and I looked at all the subjects, and I looked at each heading, because I really broke things down quite a lot in that book. And as I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking to myself, would I change? What would I really change? Because I've been asked that question before, and I answer there wouldn't be much I would change, but in my head I'm thinking, what would I change? And I think that the conclusion I came to is there would be, I can't even give you a specific, that there would be something, the way I said something, or a tweaky little thing here and there. Otherwise, I'd say the biggest thing I would say is what I know now about willpower, what I know now about compulsive overeating, what I know now in the expanded version about emotional fitness is so much greater than what I knew in 2002. What I would do is I would take those sections and I would expand them, and I would bring in the newest, latest information that I have. But I know it may sound crazy, but it's really solid. I mean, there isn't going to be much. I mean, I may not say it the same way, but sometimes I've read a passage and I'm like, God, I wrote that. And I don't mean like that's great, but it's like, boy, I like that. I mean, whoever wrote that, I like that, And
good. You're
standing
the test of time. That's
so it's
wonderful.
I really do feel, feel good about it. I feel if someone, does happen to run across a copy, that they're going to get good, solid information. Is it 2023 current? Meaning, are we speaking the exact same language with regard to all that's going on in our modern environment and society? And, there's more things like, I talk about ketogenic dieting and intermittent fasting a little bit, but, intermittent fasting's come in a different way. And so, again, kind of bringing things up to current is probably what I would say. And I know it might be kind of a lame answer, but it's the truth.
No, I think the truth is, it relates to something that I say and that was said before me and even you. Are you familiar with the work of Dr. Weston Price, the dentist?
Yes.
And so that's what pisses me off, frankly, is it's like we've known traditional foods and how to eat. He wrote about this, I want to say in 1930, somewhere around there. I mean, this is a long time ago, but we're still mucking it up. So I think the tried and true, the traditional, the sound healing practices, that's, I think, good news for people, because the solution is simple. It just doesn't mean that it's easy. It's real food.
Yeah.
And it's more than that.
Sure.
That's a big piece of it. So
it's a big piece of it.
I would like to switch gears just a little bit. You mentioned that you were both, a bodybuilder and a power lifter. I have never done either of those things, but I know that we're both, just from knowing that about you, that you're a huge fan of strength training. I credit strength training with helping me recover from a profound eating disorder when I was in my teens. Okay. Because if you just follow the advice to just eat what you're supposed to, you're going to gain weight rapidly, and it's going to be fat. And that's like the worst thing for an anorexic bulimic, is to gain weight and it be fat. And I happened to just come across someone who introduced me to weight training, and I built muscle, and I enjoyed building muscle. And then all of a sudden, when I started, I couldn't lift the 12-pound bar my brother had in his room. I mean, pathetic. And then fast forward a couple of years and I'm bench pressing over 100 pounds. That helps emotional fitness, I think, because I'm like, I am a strong person. I do matter. I should take up space. So I'm going to add a little question in here before the question we discussed, which is, you talked about the compulsive eating, that sort of, the emotional aspect. Have you seen strength training and building muscle help people with the emotional fitness? Like one informs the other in a way?
Not only, strength training and cardio, or both, in the sense that they both have a positive impact on mental health. They both have a positive impact on stress reduction, anxiety, cognition, mental clarity, energy, mental energy. They have a positive impact on reducing dementia and cognitive decline, and so on and so on and so on. It is amazing what exercise does. And strength training, great. And the thing is that while we're all human and we all have a heart located somewhere in our chest cavity, and we all typically have a liver, and we all have, these things that are like, we all have that. We don't all experience everything the same. We don't all respond the same to various training modalities. Some people are quick gainers on strength training. Some people aren't. Some people loathe strength training, even when they're introduced to it properly. They still don't like it. And some people feel that way about cardio. Ugh. Now, when I was in my bodybuilding powerlifting days, the only time, I kid you not, that I did any cardio was when I was getting ready for a show, period. I hated it. I just wanted to lift weights. But other people are the opposite. And so something in your DNA or something in your, who knows, may have had you just more, inclined to feel even better from all that strength training gives. And the thing I'll say about strength training, of course, is it is the only training modality that's going to give some of the benefits that it does, meaning we're not going to get the additional muscle gain from strictly cardio. We're not going to get it. And strictly cardio is not going to save us from sarcopenia, which, is the age-related decline of muscle. And that is going to happen. It is for sure, 100% going to happen as we age, unless we engage in strength training. Strength training is going to help so much with balance. It's going to help so much with future independent living, reducing falls and frailty. And strength training, as much or more so in some of these things, it's only going to happen with strength training. It isn't going to happen with cardio. But with regard to feeling good, feeling better, energy, all of the things that we talk about, mental health, your mileage may vary, cardio or strength, depending on what some people they just feel so amazing from going out for a run. They just feel amazing when they do that. They come back and they're like, okay, I can face the day, or whatever was going on in the day is now wiped away. And I feel great because I did that. And so it really does vary, but I'm a huge fan. There's nothing that'll take the place of strength training for preserving muscle. We have to do it. We can't rely on walking and general cardio and water aerobics and whatever to keep the muscle that we are inevitably going to lose through sarcopenia unless we do strength training. And my gosh, muscle is so precious. And I'm not talking about adding the amount of muscle that a competitive bodybuilder needs. I'm just talking about just muscle for everyday living, muscle for functionality. That's the other thing too, is that the strength to be able to easily carry in the groceries and to put the thing up on the shelf and take your carry-on bag on the plane and put it up in the overhead bin and this and that and all the things. You want to garden, you want to, engage in just activities of daily living. All of those things are easier when we have engaged in at least some moderate, consistent strength training to have good, moderate, at a minimum, decent strength. Nothing will substitute for it. So huge fan.
Yeah, strength training. So what about someone who's never done strength training? I work with, I would say, more women than men. That's probably just because I am a woman, but a lot of women are, afraid to bulk up. There's all kind of reasons to not strength train. And I'm always trying to work with someone to combat some of those myths. But let's just say I'm new and I just want to begin. Where do I begin?
Your body weight can be, your body can be your gym. To start, you don't need anything more than your body. If someone has or wants access to a full, gym, great. Not necessary. If someone wants to hire a personal trainer, great. Not necessary unless it's necessary for them. What I mean by necessary for them is they're like, I will do it if I have an appointment. I will not do it. I don't care what plan you give me if I don't have an appointment. In that case, we want to go with the flow of what's good for them and natural for them to get started. But at the simplest level, if someone says, yeah, I'll do it. I'm not resistant to, trying something new if I know how to do it. They don't want to hurt themselves. They don't want to get into something that's going to create, some kind of crazy soreness where you just pummel them and leave them in a puddle of sweat and they sore for 5 days. We don't want to do that. They might be afraid of that too, rightfully so. And so, with that, your body is your gym to start. If someone is willing and able and whatnot, then we can start with the most basic things like an air squat, knee push-ups, curl-ups or sit-ups or leg lifts or, heel touches or whatever with regard to core. Just the most simple kind of get started, beginner kind of thing could be a 5-minute workout. Someone says, I don't have time. Everybody has 5 minutes. Even if you've got four kids under the age of 5 at home, you've got 5 minutes. So in 5 minutes, you could do 5 air squats. I can't squat that deep because of my knees. I can't squat that deep because I whatever. Okay, so we're squatting to a chair, or we're squatting to a bed. Whatever we're doing, we're finding an object where we can squat to the depth that we can do. You do 5 air squats, 5 knee or wall push-ups, right? Lean toward a wall and do push-ups toward a wall. See, it's about the easiest version, or knee push-ups, or a regular push-up, whatever you can do. And then 5 either curl-ups, sit-ups, or maybe heel touches, where if you can't see me, you're laying on your back, you've got your knees bent, and you're just kind of angling left and right, trying to touch, the heel of your feet, just something for core. So 5 air squats, 5 push-ups of some kind, and 5 core movement repetitions of some kind, and just rest as needed and do as many rounds of that as you can in 5 minutes.
I love
whatever it is, it is.
Getting the hand clap, the bravo golf clap.
So that's where we can start.
I've heard to that question, because usually with a trainer type, it starts to get complicated, as well, and then you got to do this and blah blah blah. But that's simple. It's easy to remember. You could do it anywhere. Very well said, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So let's talk about your goals. So this whole thing with not only emotional fitness, I love, as a psych major and a former management consultant, I love my SMART goals. So when I saw that, I went, okay, this is perfect. And the fact that you want to have that really compelling why isn't important. So like, I want to lose 20 pounds, for example, is not like super compelling, especially when you get the boss's note. So that winning why. Can you give us example of a SMART goal with a winning why for that person who we just talked about, who's going to do the rule of 5s, the 5 air squats, the 5 push-ups, and the 5 core workout? Like, how do we get them to a SMART goal?
So, to me, there's a few different versions of that acronym, right? Because SMART is an acronym: specific, measurable, action-based, realistic. Mine is, the one I use is specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time-sensitive. So, a lot of times goals, so to speak, are really just, intentions or, ideas. They don't really have any teeth behind them, because they don't have those components that make them SMART. And the other thing is, I talk about SMART P, SMART-P. So the letter P is, you want to have the majority of your SMART goals be performance oriented, things you have control over, things you can take action on that you have control over. So you can have a SMART outcome goal, and you can have but the majority of the goals need to be SMART performance goals. So a SMART outcome goal is, I want to lose 30 pounds by April 15th, 2023. So is it specific? Yeah. Is it measurable? It is. Is it action oriented? Because it's a little bit more goal oriented, defined, but that's okay. Is it realistic? Depends on the person, but yes, you could say, I don't know if April 15th from here. Yeah, but it's possible. Yeah. Is it time sensitive? It is. It has the date attached to it. Okay, great. That's where a lot of people stop. They're like, that's my goal. I'm out. Thanks so much, coach. I got it. They're like, no, you don't have it yet. So now, what are some SMART performance oriented? What are the performance things you can do and that are going to be necessary, that you have control over, that are small but critical and necessary to consistently achieve it? So if we look at that 5-5-5 workout, that would be a performance goal that we could make SMART. All right. So to make that a SMART goal, someone might say, for an example, and I hadn't thought about this before the question, but to make it a SMART goal, we would say that we are going to do the 5-5-5 by 8 a.m. on Thursday, January 26th, you know, and so I will have it completed by then. Whew, okay. Well, I love that. I think I need to go through the SMART and make sure it fits, but I'm pretty sure specific, measurable, action-oriented. It is. Is it realistic? It is. And is it time sensitive? Yes. And is it a P? Is it a performance goal? Something that you do as a behavior that you have control over. You're not asking, I'll do it if Dixie does this. Oh, okay. Now it's dependent on someone else. Not saying that can't happen, but it's not, and what I'm saying is like if David is making the goal, but I'm making it dependent on whether Dixie does the podcast with me. Oh, okay. Right. So no, it should be with the things that are within your control. And that is within that person's control. They can choose it. They're the ones 100% responsible for doing it or not. And it's not big. And I love those performance goals that are small, progressive, not overwhelming, but that are necessary, right? And so that's an exercise one. And you can also turn them into nutrition and keep them really small and make them smart performance goals. I will eat a vegetable. You can get specific. I will eat 3 baby carrots, whatever. I will eat a vegetable by noon today. It's performance oriented. It's smart. Instead of saying, which a lot of people do, I need to eat more vegetables.
Exactly. There's no action in that.
Yeah, we all need to do lots of things, right? But it's just a good intention, non-commitment. There's nothing specific behind it, and it's just not well defined.
I love it. I mean, that really. I went through the exercise on your website, and I'm like, this is great because y'all, it's sort of progressive questions if you are a new student of Leanness Lifestyle University, and it's great. So bravo there as well. So I heard you say, David, on another podcast about people eating, say, 3 to 6 times a day. And I smiled because I remembered a woman that I hired, it's probably 10 years ago now. And she was one of these bodybuilder types. I mean, her physique was gorgeous. Right. And she wanted me to eat 6 times a day. And it was very low fat. And it was like all I was doing was buying food, making food, eating food, and then frankly, being hungry. So to me, what has helped me, and as you said earlier, people are different. I happen to love strength training. Someone else, it's their worst nightmare. So to me, I think in my body, any more than 3 times is, and especially with people I work with that have got, metabolic health problems, like that's unnecessarily spiking insulin. It's creating this hunger cycle, this sugar roller coaster. So talk to me about if someone wants to become a student of Leanness Lifestyle University, how are they going to be eating? Is that individualized, or do you just have a way, like this is how it works on a program?
Yeah, that's a great question. We provide a framework of nutrition that's flexible. So, there are 15 nutrition elements, nutrition fundamentals, as we call them. They are flexible and adaptable to just about any eating style that someone's going to eat. But what I would say is nutrition principle number 1 is something you said earlier, which is, this is our principle number 1, is eat real food.
Oh, yes.
Right. So
if you do one thing, please just eat real food.
Please, right. And so that's why it's our nutrition principle number 1 is eat real food. And then there are 14 other, nutrition principles that go along. That again, highly adaptable to whatever style someone is. If someone's eating 2 or 3 times a day, the 15 principles are still going to apply. Now, one of the boxes is I consume typically not less than 3 meals, not more than 6, on any given day. The reason we have that in there is that is in nothing's uniform, but that is in research. When we look at successful people who have gotten weight off and kept it off in published research, the overwhelming majority of them eat somewhere between that amount. That doesn't mean that other people aren't going to be successful eating 1, 2 times a day. And so if you are, like in your case, you're eating 3, first of all, that's a no problem at all. And nothing's a problem. We would just want to look at and see what's the person doing, and we want to meet them where they are. So we're not going to come at them and say, oh, you're one of those, you're eating 1 or 2 times a day. Well, nice meeting you. You know, it won't work. It may work just fine for them. We want to look at things, though, within this framework. We want to at least address, like, let me just get extreme. You know, OMAD, 1 meal a day.
Very
some
popular
people,
right now.
right, they brought it down to 1 meal a day, and it's out there. What I would say is, but it gets really funky, though. If you really look at what a lot of people doing, what they're doing in reality with their 1 meal a day is they eat for an hour, and it's still 2,000 calories, but it's 1 meal a day or whatever, and in that's a heavy load on the digestive system.
That's what I think. Just, I do not like to be full. Like, I just,
right. And that's
that feeling. So
it's going to be a lot. And the other thing is that, certain rules, science rules, physiology rules, keep muscle rules don't go away just because someone's decided to adopt a 1 meal a day plan. For example, you were talking about, and I'm so on board with, we got to keep muscle, keep it at a minimum. You might need to add some more new muscle, but you got to keep it, because otherwise sarcopenia, and we lose it as we age. Well, as a part of keeping muscle, especially if we're trying to cut fat, especially if we're doing that, especially if you're engaged in weight training for the purpose of adding muscle, or you're in a fat loss mode, we need about twice the protein per day as someone who's in maintenance.
How do you get your protein with OMAD?
I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the likelihood that it's going to happen is going to be quite minimal. The other thing is that I'm not someone, again, I follow the science, nose is buried in peer-reviewed research every single week. And I'm not someone who says you can't absorb more than 30 grams of protein in a meal. False. Depends on the person. But what I will say is, generally speaking, what they have found is the upper threshold is about 60 grams per meal. So it doesn't mean that it's always 60 grams. If someone eats a ribeye steak and it's got 80 grams of protein, they might absorb that just fine. But generally speaking, 60 grams is kind of the cutoff on a per meal basis. Well, if your 1 meal a day has, 130 grams of protein, which maybe is what we want for the day, how much of it are you really absorbing? How much of it can the body really use? So these rules that are science-based don't go away just because someone's decided to adapt to the less than 3 meal plan. It can happen. It's at 1 meal a day. It's probably not ideal, but again, there are going to be people out there. They're going to say, I've been on 1 meal a day for 2 years and I have okay, great. I'm just going to say great, because I'm a fan of Churchill's quote. Winston Churchill had a quote that I love, which is, no matter how beautiful the strategy, we should occasionally look at the results. And so, we can talk
to this marketer. That is, oh boy.
Right. So you and I could talk strategy and all day, and we could look at this and that. But a person who's on 1 meal a day and has for 4 or 5 years, the person who's been out for 3 months, I'm sorry. I'm going to be a little, don't get me wrong. I'm going to support what they're doing. We're going to try to make it work. And we're not going to say, you can't do this, it won't work for you. That's not it. But I'm going to be a little deaf to any kind of notion that this works for me, and I know it does. You're too early in it. When you've been doing it and you've gotten to where you want to go and you've been doing it well for 4 years or so, then I'm going to say, hey, Churchill's quote, I like that. It works for you.
Excellent. So let's talk about HICO. Some people call it CICO. Calories in, calories out. So I admittedly in my book talk about calorie jail, because I spent basically from age 10 to about 35 obsessively counting calories. I'm 45 now, so I've had a 10-year break. Thank goodness. I was able to write my book because I didn't have to count calories anymore. Right. And so I'm curious about your perspective with calories, just because and as we've said a few times in this episode, like, different people have different physiologies, different traditions. For me, it worked until it didn't work when I became injured and I couldn't, you were talking about the run. Oh, I used to love my long runs, but my hip, my operated on hip that says, no, those days are over. So it just stopped working for me. And I found that focusing on something that I know we both love because we've talked about it, this real whole food and the nutrient density was what really helped me let go of that. Now I'm different because I came into it via disordered eating. And you see that as well, I know.
Yes.
But what's your just overall perspective on calories? Do they matter? Is it bullshit? Is it some gray area? What say you? You have decades more experience than me.
Yeah, so I say this. It drives me nuts. You didn't say it, so this isn't any
Oh, it's
reflection on
okay.
anything you've said. No, you didn't, but it drives me nuts when I see someone with a huge platform or whatever say, pay no attention to calories, it's all hormones. What I say is calories are king, but it's not the only thing. And so here's the deal. Each of us, again, we're all human, and you think of it from a medical perspective too. So you go into your physician, and he or she needs to treat you for something. Thankfully, we're all human. Again, as I said, heart's in the chest cavity here. We got a couple of kidneys, a liver, on and on and on. But we don't all respond to the same medical treatment in the same way. They figure that out eventually. Together, hopefully, you get a plan and it's something that works for you. It's one of the reasons there are like 10 different pain relievers out there. Tylenol works for somebody. Ibuprofen works for someone else. Everything doesn't work for everyone. So with regard to calories in, calories out, we're all, again, human. We've all got the two kidneys. Okay, fine. We all have a metabolism. And what I'll say is that within a fairly reasonably predictable range, I can tell you, Dixie, how many calories you're going to need based on your activity, can calculate it, how many you're going to need to maintain, how many you're going to need to gain, how many you're going to need to lose.
Your site gave me a very specific number. I think it was 1463 to lose 5 pounds by, I forget the date I picked.
Oh, my plan. Oh, yeah. I'm thinking, I didn't hear you. So yeah, there are formulas that'll get it close. And what we can do is and here's the thing. I say calories are king, but they're not the only thing. It is king from the perspective of a math problem. It is king from the perspective of an equation. If we just look at humans as just a math problem, calories in, calories out, eat less, exercise more. They're not. But from a caloric perspective, it's very important that people do know that it's not mystical, magical, whatever. If within a range, for you, it might be 1466 to lose blah, blah, blah by whatever date. For someone else, it could be 1675. And it could be somebody your height and weight still, and it might be off by a couple, 300 calories a day. It's probably not going to be off by 500 a day. It could be off by a few hundred. But if a person with a good calculation being done, considering resting metabolic rate, energy expenditure in the day, and the thermic effect of food, and all these things that come into creating the equation. If we consider all those things, it can be predicted. I can tell you, if I could get you in robot mode, okay, meaning you're no longer an emotional human being and you just, yes, I will eat this no matter what, if we could get you in robot mode, I could tell you very closely in 6 weeks what you're going to weigh if you eat this. I might be off just a smidge, but I won't be off by much. So to me, one, it's just incredibly science evidence-based. No one gets to violate the laws of thermodynamics, and calories matter the most when it comes to weight gain, weight maintenance, or weight loss. However, that piece where it says, but they're not the only thing, is huge, because nutrients matter. They matter a great deal. What we're eating matters. Yes, Dixie, whatever you weigh now, you could lose 5 pounds in 5 weeks eating nothing but Cheerios or Lucky Charms.
Exactly. Well, according to Tufts University, Cheerios are now.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Don't even get me. Yes, I know. Their food classification system is a mess. Yeah, they've got Lucky Charms in front of beef or something like that. It's just
exactly.
But anyway, it can be predicted. They are king in the sense that if we can get the behaviors to align from a pure weight gain, weight stable, weight loss perspective, they are what matter the most. However, nutrients matter huge. However, whether it's real food or ultra-processed food, matters immensely when it comes to behaviors, immensely when it comes to health, immensely when it comes to all the factors that determine health span, lifespan, joints, inflammation, non-communicable diseases, on and on and on. Yeah, someone can get to any weight they want eating Lucky Charms and nothing but that. But it's because calories are king. But in the real world, we have to look at all of those other factors, like nutrients, like real food versus ultra-processed food, like willpower, like compulsive eating, like emotional fitness, because that's why I say they're king, but they're not the only thing. Someone says, pay no attention to calories, just look at hormones. And I say, that's nuts. Hormones matter. They do. They will impact behavior. They will impact nutrient partitioning. They will impact deposition of where fat goes, menopause and this kind of thing. We start getting more centrally located fat deposition, right? Yeah, hormones affect all of those things, from thinking to behaviors to nutrient partitioning to fat deposition where it goes in the body. But still, no matter what stage of life someone's in, calories are king, but they are not the only thing. So I won't go into it unless you want me to with regard to counting calories, but that's kind of my foundation for recognizing the importance of calories and what, energy in, energy out. But how we get there is rubber on the road stuff.
Well, and I think the two philosophies, that's sort of a big unnecessary word, but I think both can be true. So I like what you said, sorry, but the laws of thermodynamics apply. That's just how it is. Agreed. Does someone have to do that to achieve what they need? And I think maybe my hypothesis is what we've been talking about now, and it's good to repeat: real whole foods, because your satiety signaling is broken by ultra processed foods. And so therefore it's very easy to overeat. When you just eat real whole single ingredient foods, you're done. When you're done. And so, but then I agree. Maybe there are people though who still need to count calories. And that's what they want to do and that helps them. Sort of like some people want to weigh every day, some people want to weigh every week. To me, it's, as you've said, like working with the individual for what works for them. I just know that for me, it was very much the wrong focus. I needed that overarching nutrient density, but I like that because I would love to say, just never worry about that again to all my clients. But there are people who, the way that I'm working with them maybe doesn't work to the extent that they need it. So we have to maybe dive a little bit deeper. So thank you for that insight.
Can I add just one thing on that too, just for clarity on the calories, on the counting? One of the things too with us is we are only a fan of counting calories long-term if the person finds comfort in the end from doing it. So what happens is they use an app. They'll use the app on my virtual campus, or they'll use MyFitnessPal or whatever. MyFitnessPal is typically the biggie, as a tracking app, for counting. That's fine. Unrelated to me. It becomes something where the apps make it so easy to do. Some people find, not at first, when you're first putting stuff in, it's like, ugh, it's whatever. But some of the apps make it, and ours too, makes it so easy to do, because we find people only eat about 20 different meals in a month.
Right. Once you get it in the system, you're
right. I mean, and just in general, even if you don't put it in the system, just in general in life, you don't typically eat more than about 20-ish different things in a month. So we're not a fan of doing it long term unless that person says, I just like seeing it. Fine. No, body dysmorphia things, no psychological things going on. It's all just positive. And they're like, it takes me 2 minutes and fine. Otherwise, what we say is we recommend it, not mandate it. We recommend it in the beginning for a couple, 3 weeks. Get a handle, just get a feel for it. If the person's never done it before, they're likely to be surprised because they're like, well, I don't eat that much. Because that's the thinking they have. Hey, I don't eat that much. And then they look and they go, oh, I didn't realize that the this and that was,
Right.
and here I am, and I'm sitting at, whatever, 2,600 calories, and I'm supposed to be at 1,800 or whatever it is. And so they learn, and they kind of get their own master's degree in personal, intake, from doing that for a little while. And then we say, all right, leave it, or whatever you want to do, and let's live life. Let's eat real food. Let's do these other things and put these things in place. We don't keep logging forever. Another time that we'll say it's good to maybe do it. And again, it depends. You came to me and said, Dave, here's my history. I'm not going to ask you to do it. I'm not going to ask you to do it. I don't think it would be positive for you. I don't think, and likely not going to be necessary. We'll eventually look, and I'm not going to push you either way, but it just, because we're talking here, I might say we need to look at Churchill and see, how beautiful the strategy, but we need to look at the results. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to guilt you into logging. I would just say, let's continue to work through these things. But a lot of times we'll have people do it if they're stuck. Like if they're like, I don't understand what's going on, Dave. I lost 10 pounds. I was doing great, or whatever. Or I got to my goal. I lost 25 pounds and I'm at my lifetime goal. And now the weight's coming back up and I'm not eating that much. I don't know what's going on. We might say, let's go back and log for 3 days. Just 3 days. And then we'd say, let's see what's going on. I've had to do it myself. There was a time, I'm in my late 50s. There was a time when I was about 50 where I was like Eeyore, from Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, well, I'm getting older. My metabolism's slowing down. I have to eat like a 12-year-old girl or whatever. I can't eat, And I went, wait a minute, Dave, what would you tell someone else? And I hadn't logged in.
Coach.
I hadn't logged in a few years. And I'm like, let's see what you're eating. Well, I'm not eating very much, was 3,400 calories a day.
Right.
And I went, oh, your metabolism's fine.
Back to the laws of thermodynamics.
So I only did that for a few days. It not only woke me back up, got me back to reality, but it had me feeling less sorry for myself that now I'm older and my metabolism was just fine. I just was underestimating.
Exactly. So root causes of obesity, diabetes. For me, as I look at this food space with all of these franken faux foods and inflammatory oils that dysregulate hormones and sleep and mental health, create mental health problems, and I look around the world and I see this thing that we're missing in our culture largely. I mean, we do have foodies, but that tends to be like one extreme, is we do not enjoy the pleasures of the table. We're doing fridge drive-bys. We're doing the drive-throughs that everyone knows are not, a place to get real food. And food needs to be honored in a way. So for me, that's one of my big messages with the nourishment mindset is it's not just the real whole foods, but it's actually connecting with nature and humanity at a table, even if you're the only one at the table and you're just eating lunch quietly and focusing on what you're doing. But what other drivers? Because you've been doing this for more years. You've talked about emotional fitness. You've talked about the compulsive eating. What else do you see?
As far as what's driving the overconsumption or the off-plan kind of eating, or what?
Overconsumption, and then the end result of obesity, diabetes. I mean, rates just skyrocketing.
Right.
It's not gotten better since you launched Leanness Lifestyle for your clients, for your students. Yes. Right. But for the world.
I'll go back to that big word, obesogenic.
Yes.
So that's where I would start. We live in an incredibly obesogenic environment. If you look at what's promoted marketing-wise, with related to what most people would call food that you and I don't. You and I just don't. I don't call it food. I always call it frankenfood, food-like substance, ultra-processed food. In my head flips it immediately. Even if I'm eating a pizza that isn't food, I don't in my head say I'm going to have some food. I'm like I'm going to have my Franken pizza or whatever. I'm going to have it. So that all the factors that relate to the obesogenic environment. So marketing is huge. What gets marketed? Do you ever seen an advertisement for Brussels sprouts? I mean, on
I'm holding
television,
my breath waiting for that.
right? That they don't exist. Real food advertisements just almost don't exist. Then we've got the aspect of subsidies for farmers. What are farmers growing? They're growing crops that eventually typically get turned into frankenfood. So there's I call it the monkey banana relationship. It's like, what's the reward here? It's like, we're all just monkeys. And it's like, what's the banana? You give me the right banana and I will respond accordingly. And so we're giving, farmers a reward of sorts for doing this. And then the government's rewarded, and then food companies are rewarded. And as long as the relationship is what it is, it's going to be a problem in that regard. We're looking at, what about number of fast food restaurants? What about, I'm not one that says fast food, you're the reason. I just say that they're just one of the spokes in the wheel. But the availability of fast food didn't exist 50 years ago, 60 years ago.
I was just thinking, when you and I were kids, there were, it's probably 5 times the number of chains or something.
And ask, maybe at this point, depending on the age of your listener, ask a parent or a grandparent how many times they went out to eat in a week or a month or a year. I asked my dad that, a few years back. His dad, how often did you, go out to eat? He goes, oh my gosh. He goes, it was, maybe once a month. And it was crazy, special, So what about the convenience marts and 24/7 access? For hundreds of thousands of years, we didn't have 24/7 access. A lot of times we had no access for days,
right?
Or longer, and then we just ended up, not surviving. But the species survived because we evolved to figure out, and our bodies had us driven to calorie dense. Eat things that are calorie dense so that you can store up, and you'll have some reserve for when the famine comes. But there's no famine now, and so we've got. And what about the cost of these ultra processed foods? They're typically cheap, really convenient. They're quick. They typically require less or no preparation. So all these factors contribute to the obesogenic environment, promoting the overconsumption of ultra-processed food. So I say it this way with regard to the obesogenic environment. All of the factors that contribute to the overconsumption of ultra-processed food, including the fact that ultra-processed food is addictive, all of that, which also makes it obesogenic, all of the factors that contribute to the overconsumption of ultra-processed food are collectively the single greatest factor contributing to obesity. So we have to be aware of that. We have to look at it and we have to say, that fast food is a driver. That fast food is a big contributor, and we have to at least be aware that we've got all of these cues, in our mental space, in our visual focus, and so we've got to be aware, of those things. We also, people have willpower. I'll ask your audience just to answer for themselves. If you work for someone else, how often are you late to work? People are going to say, like, never. Almost never. None of us is perfect, but it's really low. Do you always go to work in a great mood? Do you always go to work when you're full of energy and not tired? Do you always go to work when the weather's great? Do you always go to work when you're not sick? Do you always go to work? Are all these things that somehow have to supposedly be there for our fitness to take hold? And you go, no. And I go, well, why are you to work on time? Well, because I need the money, because I like the job, because of this and that, and my family and my house and my car and the things, and people rely on me. And the why is incredibly strong for driving you to go do that thing that you might not love on some days or on any day, but you do it anyway. We could say the same. So that takes incredible willpower. My definition of willpower, just my working definition, is the ability to do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not.
Oh, I love it.
And so you go, all right, so I go to work, I do what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, whether I feel like it or not. That's willpower. What drives that? Why power? Just one more example. For people listening that you remember back, or maybe you've got kids of school age right now. They need you to pick them up, soccer practice, school, whatever it is. When was the last time you just blew it off? You know, I mean,
Well, just last night, I think you might still be at the baseball field.
right. He might still be there. You know what? I just wasn't in the mood. I
Right.
was tired. I didn't have the energy. Matter of fact, my throat was a little tickly. I had a sore throat. I didn't feel like it. And I'm just kind of tired of having to do it. It's a pain in the butt, and I got to do it during a busy time of the day, and I hate rush hour traffic. So I just said no. No, parents are like, "Are you kidding me?" You know, a parent feels guilty for 5 years for being 10 minutes late.
Exactly.
You know, so
But
anyway,
we don't gift ourselves with that same diligence. And that's very, I love it, because so many people in our space can be either preachy or dogmatic. And it's not approachable for a lot of people. But what you just took me through, I mean, you had me laughing. So I assume that it's the same thing with your clients and your students. And it's great, because it just shows you can do this. And that's a wonderful thing. It's not a pushy approach at all. It is, you've got this, you can do it. So
I love it. I love the way you just said that, because that's exactly where I'm sitting right now. What I feel about my clients is exactly what you just said. You do have this. We just can't rely on the old messaging. Hey, calories in, calories out, and personal responsibility. Peace out. That's not going to work. It hasn't worked. Our obesity rate's at 43%. It was at 15% in 1970. It's supposed to be 50% by 2030. We're not winning this with the messaging of all things in moderation, personal responsibility, eat less, exercise more.
We're turning a lot of people off.
And we're turning a lot of people off because they keep trying that without success.
So one more question, and then I always like to have a parting tip from our expert. Okay. Something I read that you said, your point about the start itself is what stops many people, and it's related to what you were just saying. So what advice do you have for someone who is hearing this and going, okay, I can do this? I realize that I've never left my child at the baseball field.
Right.
What advice do you have for this parent to just get started, just to take the first step?
It's a great question. And I just want to say, I think I've got to have a marketing piece that says, have you ever left a child at the baseball field? No? Then you can do this, And so I love what you said there. All right. So if we just kind of let's look at the kind of the three main legs of weight management stool: nutrition, exercise, and emotional fitness. So let's take one little thing in each. So nutrition, it could be to eat one vegetable a day. Mm-hmm. Maybe you're not eating any, or it's eat one more. One of the things we want to do is we want to start crowding out the ultra processed food by increasing real food. And that's the way I like to think of it. Instead of take away, let's keep, because that's what's happened in reverse. It's the reason as a society we are where we are. Real food has become crowded out because the average person's consuming 90% of their day is ultra processed food, 10% real food maybe. And so the real food's been crowded out. Start to reverse it, but start to reverse it without all or nothing perfectionism.
More approach.
Come at it with just eat one more vegetable, eat one piece of fruit, not even a whole fruit. Eat a strawberry. Go in that direction. Another little just kind of simple thing is, if you are someone who consumes a lot of diet soda or full strength soda or whatever, and maybe you're at 6 a day or something like that, just cut back one of those. Right. Not 2, just cut back one. Just say, I'll have 5 instead of 6 today, or whatever it may be. Make those small changes and just start with that. And I'm going to say, as much as I possibly can, feel good about that change. Give yourself an applause, celebrate that change, and just keep slowly, incrementally, or whatever pace is comfortable for you, increasing, that real food. When it comes to exercise, we kind of talked about one, where it could be 5 minutes of something. Don't make it overwhelming. I heard unless you do at least 30 minutes and you're drained in a pool of sweat, it's worthless. Not true. The other thing is, that was a strength training, your body is your equipment workout. But if you are able, go walk around the block. You may not be able, weather, safety, whatever, I get it. But if you can walk, you say, well, I got to get in 10,000 steps or it's worthless. No, it's not. Can you get in 500 steps? I mean, can you go, just don't even go around the block. Walk to the end of your driveway and back. If you're not doing anything, a step like that is a great step in the right direction. And I'm going to applaud any new student who says, Dave, I haven't done, I have just been basically couch. I work at an office. I sit at my desk all day, and I basically, my only exercise has been pulling the plug in the bathtub and fighting the drain, or fighting the water from going down the drain. That's been it. But now you've done that little bit of walking. Now you've done even 5 air squats. Great. Small, little, tiny little step to get started. When it comes to the emotional fitness side of things, we might say, go all in as you can on your sleep hygiene. Yes. Because if we don't get enough sleep, at least 7 hours a day, most days of the week, we start to turn into just, for me personally, you give me a number of days where I've gotten 5 hours, in a row, and you're going to find me in a corner sucking my thumb with a laundry basket over my head.
Well, and you're much more amusing than I am, because I'm like, just think of his insulin response. His insulin is going to be out of control, and then
right.
And it's like under the.
I know. I'm just thinking. I'm a babbling baby idiot. When I don't get sleep. And so here's the thing: what are our choices nutritionally like? Again, getting that nutrition and exercise choices consistent. What are those choices like when we don't sleep? Besides those choices, the importance of sleep just can't be overstated. So that would be maybe one thing you could do, is just make some tiny change or a good positive change to getting to bed at the right time, so that your wake up time makes sense and you're trying to get the 7 hours, keep the lights down low, get rid of artificial light and all of the electronic devices, and kind of prep yourself. Don't have an argument with the spouse. Don't talk, hey, I've got something deep to talk with you about at 9:30 p.m. and we go to bed at 10. Oh, try not to do that, because now your brain's racing a mile a minute, and things like that. That would just be like just starter things. But someone, because each person is different, may say, Dave, I'm already eating this amount. I'm already doing this. I'm already doing that. So we just would want to just take an incremental step forward in at least those 3 areas to start, but maybe just one of those areas. And you just get going. I won't do it, because there's a strategy I use for making a deal with yourself that is all about small change that is really effective. But I don't, if for time constraints, if it's not long, but for time constraints, if I can leave it.
Well, how about this? People need to find you.
Yeah.
So I think they should go and check out Leanness Lifestyle University. So is that the website? Will you tell us how you want people to find you?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the best. And all the social links are on there. So the best address to give is just that. And it's lluniversity.com.
lluniversity.com. And I believe, at least when I was there the other day, people can get a free taste.
Yeah. So what I'd say is, once in a while we'll run a trial. When you came in, we were running a 2-week trial. What I'll say to this, for any of your listeners, if we aren't running that, if we don't have a free 2-week trial when they visit the site, because we just got maybe the normal page up, contact me. Just send me an email. Use the contact us page and say, hey, I heard you on Dixie's podcast, You talked about a free 2-week trial. I'd like to take advantage. I will get you the link and we'll make sure you get taken care of.
Excellent. Because I think there's going to be some people who want to go through that, exercise with you about, leaving your kid at school or sports practice, and just remind themselves, I can do this.
Yes, you have done. Everybody has done. I'll leave with this, because I know that I'm over on time and I just go on and on. But I will say this. You've already done incredibly hard things in your life, whoever's listening. You've already achieved amazing things. You've already demonstrated you can do hard things for a long time. You've demonstrated that. So it's not a surprise if you're struggling. It's not a surprise if you're not where you want to be. It's not a surprise that you're not. With the messaging and the misinformation and the misguided this and the half-truths and the half-baked this and the just incomplete, and inadequate messaging that's gone on, it's not what I say is, it's not a wonder that you're not. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. We just have to bring the messaging and the education and support and all that goes with that to meeting you where you are and bring it into 2023. Bring it into where we are. And if we do that, you can get to any healthy weight you want, living in the body you want, having the fitness you want for life. There's going to be a little ebb and flow. This isn't I get to this and I stay there perfectly. That's not it. But it isn't the yo-yoing and the up and down and the relapsing doesn't have to occur. And I'm just here to tell you, don't give up, stay with it. And anything I can do, just feel free to reach out.
I love that positive note. You provided us with 3 tips at the end, and many more throughout. So thank you, David, for being on this show. We really appreciate your advice and approachability, y'all. I mean, that's the thing. Not all programs or educational experiences are brutal. And he's built such a approachable, again, I keep coming back to that word, and baby step. It's not overwhelming. So bravo, thank you. And I hope everyone out there has a nourished day.